Hello everyone, this is a video recapping my experience of walking the Camiño de Santiago de Compostela. I started in Porto and I walked the central Portuguese route, not the coastal one, and I walked all the way to Santiago de Compostela. I did this over the course of 8/9 days. I don't recommend doing it in such a short amount of time. I was just pressed for time as I had very little wiggle room when it comes to holidays. But if you can do it in, let's say, 10, 11, 12 days, you'll find the experience much more enjoyable. At least you won't have to go through painful days, especially if you haven't got a lot of experience. Now, I can say that I'm an able-bodied young man. I'm 26 and I've been doing a lot of runs this year, but I had never done a multi-day hike before. This was very new for me. I didn't have proper hiking shoes. I had runner's shoes. And let me say now, first and foremost, if you're considering doing a multi-day hike and you don't have much experience, double up on socks. I know this is such an easy piece of advice for people to ignore. If you want to ignore it, you can do so at your own risk. I'll be honest. It's such a simple piece of advice. Make sure you double up on socks. You'll save yourself from getting blisters, hopefully. And that is the most common bane of a hiker's experience. So, let me recap it for you, my personal experience. I had to go to Porto on a Wednesday evening after work, as my holiday started on a Thursday. I stayed at a youth hostel, and that was just day 0, let's say. So day 1 begins. I'm in Porto and I start walking around 6 o'clock in the morning from the cathedral, and on the way towards a place called Gats, which is over 30 kilometers away. Very ambitious for a first day, having never experienced a long hike before and carrying a lot of weight on my back. On day 1 in particular, towards the end of the day, I had a lot of pain in my shoulders because I wasn't used to it. But fortunately, this was only a problem on day 1 and a little bit on day 2. All the other days, my body seemed to have gotten accustomed to the extra weight and I no longer had a problem on my back or no pains along my spine. So I was pushing myself very hard on the first day. First bit of the walk from the cathedral till I got outside of the urban area on the surrounding area of Porto was a bit boring, to be honest, those first many hours. Once I start getting more into the countryside, that's when it gets a little bit more interesting. I met a girl called Pernilla from Denmark, and we had a nice conversation. I mentioned to her, because the topic of mental health came up, that the guy who gave me the most insight was Dr. K. And if you know my YouTube channel, you know I'm a big fan and I highly recommend watching Dr. K's content. So I think she got a little bit of insight from that, so that was nice. I had a rest in a place where I was planning to go for a swim. So I will show here quickly a little leaflet that I got when I was visiting Barcelos, which is along the way. So the Camiño starts down here. Let's see if I can get it. Porto, and there are some Roman bridges on the path. These two that I'm pointing to there. I thought the water would be nice enough to swim in. It wasn't. It was really rubbish. So I just kept walking and I pushed on and I got to a place called Arcos, which means arcs, kind of like the arcs of a bridge, of a Roman bridge. And there was this cafe. Now, this Thursday was a bank holiday in Portugal, the 15th of August. And I was really lucky because the 2 old men out there said, order quick, she's going to close at 1. And after all this walking I had done from 6 in the morning until 1, 7 hours of walking, I managed to make it before it closed. I managed to get myself 2 fizzy drinks, bought a fizzy pineapple drink and a Coca-Cola. And I also bought a chocolate pastry and a big bottle of water. And that was so refreshing. I had a conversation with a guy called Zorhan from Germany. He told me how to treat my blisters, which I had inevitably gotten after 7 hours of walking with only 1 layer of socks. Make sure you double up. And so I rested. That was nice conversation. I did another 4 kilometers only after the first 31. I did another 4 to get to a place called Gats. And I ate at a restaurant there called the Pilgrim, or Peregrin. That's many places themed after the pilgrimage. As you'll note, the whole path with the arrows that you follow and the support that they have for the pilgrims and the youth hostels, which they call albergues, it is very much oriented the local area towards supporting the people who are doing this walk. And so I go to this restaurant, lovely full meal, I enjoyed it, and the proportion was just right, even though it was small. The starter, small main, small dessert, and a drink with it, and a few extras. It was the right amount because for some reason, despite the extra physical challenge and burning maybe 5,000 or 6,000 calories a day, maybe more, I wasn't that hungry, and I was probably eating around 1,500, maybe less a day. Very strange things to be happening. And after the 8/9 days of walking, I ended up weighing 3 kilos less than I did originally. I will admit, in the 2 weeks after the long walk, I did eat a lot and put 2 of those kilos back on, but since then it's sort of fluctuated a bit lower than I used to be before. So at least me, who was trying to lose weight this year, I'm a bit happy about that. So I got to meet this lovely lady while I was having dinner called Marina, and she is from Catalonia. And we had a great conversation talking about esoteric and spiritual stuff, which are topics that I love talking about. I don't meet a lot of people that are interested in this sort of thing. And on the walk of the Camiño de Santiago, you'll think, most people are Christian, of course, and so not so into weird esoteric stuff and believing, that what's in the Bible is the only thing that matters. But we're talking with Marina, I got to talk a bit beyond just that scope, and it was nice to resonate on many different ideas. Then I did 1 extra kilometer walking to find a spot to camp, and so I set up a tent behind some trees just along the path, and that's where I had my night. I put the outer layer of the tent, although it wasn't necessary in the summer. For all the other nights that I camped along the way, I made sure I didn't use the outer layer of the tent, so it was a bit more cool. And I was very sweaty after walking so much. I didn't have a proper place to wash myself except the restroom in the restaurant. The next morning, I continue my path. I take a little pause for breakfast, and who's on the path? Oh, it's Marina again. So we walk a bit of the path together, and it was really nice to share all sorts of ideas. And she gave me some advice on that I should be walking with my legs straight because I was limping a bit. As you imagine, walking 36 kilometers on the first day, not a very wise idea. It did cause me a little bit of a limp, a little pain in my left hip. But luckily, day 2 was the only time I experienced this pain in my left hip. I chose a path to walk towards Barcelos, which is the place where I got this leaflet. I chose a path which went up a hill that went to a church. It was a more challenging route, not alongside the main road. And I thought, let's go the scenic path. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't have, not because the church wasn't beautiful or that it was a lovely sight from on top of the hill. It's just that I was pushing myself way harder than I should have been, especially so early on into a multi-day hike with no experience really. So this was a lesson for me, and day 2 was so challenging that I was questioning whether I should even be doing this walk. Should I do it another time? At this point, it's not just the physical challenge of the pains I'm going through in my feet and my shoulder and my hip or my leg or my back. Small pains here and there. The biggest pain was obviously the feet. That's what hurts the most. But and shoulders less so, apart from day 1, and the back only a little bit here, and the hip only a little bit there, and legs a bit more on some days than others. But when going through the physical challenge, it's actually the psychological challenge, the thoughts of giving up and not doing it and leaving it for another time. That's the real challenge, actually, is the thoughts of giving up and being able to push through it. And you sort of have to grow and get used to these feelings, this negative self-talk, and you have to push through it, and you learn a lot from that as well. On the way to Barcelos, I had a little stop in a place called Barcelinhos, which is just before Barcelos. So I found there was a youth hostel along the way, and especially after having gone to bed feeling so sweaty that night, and having had a proper shower in after walking at this point 50 kilometers, I had already done more than 1/5 of the journey in just over a day and a half. I asked this youth hostel guy, I've got a weird request. I'm not looking for a room. I just really need to have a shower. And he said, go ahead. And I did. And so I went up to him and I said, please let me pay €5. And he's like, no. I was like, please, that was so kind of you to let me use your shower. And it was so refreshing and I really needed it. Please let me pay €5. He was like, no. And then I had to play the British card, the triple insist. I'd played that card and he was like, fine. And so he let me give him €5. So that was really nice. Marina had gone the easier path. I had gone the more difficult path, so we split ways at that point. But when I got to Barcelos, I go into the supermarket, Pingo Doce, very popular here in Portugal, and there she is having her lunch. And I was like, oh, it's nice to bump into you again. And so I get myself some strawberries for lunch. That's all I ate, strawberries and a little chocolate pastry thing. I'm just not hungry. It's very weird. And so we have a nice little conversation, and I rest in Barcelos near the main church sort of thing, sitting in the shade, treating my blisters and reading a bit of the Bible. And once the sun gets lower, I continue with my walk. And you'll notice the theme of my walk. I'm taking a tent with me with a sleeping bag and a pillow. And most people, they don't take these sort of extras. Normally they take a sleeping bag for the youth hostels, the albergues, but they don't normally take a tent with them, an extra 3 kilos. Why? Well, I wanted to not stay at the albergues. I wanted to go camping between the locations. So I wasn't spending the night at the locations and staying in the hostels. I was going between them and camping in my own tent. Although, as you will see, at 2 of these nights, I did not stay in a tent on 2 of these nights. After the sun was a bit lower, I continued walking and I made it to a place called Portela. And at Portela, I don't think it's on this list here. No, I'm just looking. No, Portela doesn't appear here, but it's after a lot of uphill, and I was planning to go camping on the grass just outside the albergue that they have there, because a man who let me use his shower in his albergue said, oh, you should stop at Portela, it's a great place to put up your tent. It turns out they were having a music party, a village party, a Portuguese typical village party, huge stage right next to where the albergue is. If I put a tent, I wasn't going to get a single second of sleep as long as loud music was playing till 2 or 3 in the morning. I know what the village parties are like in Portugal. I've stayed at many, I can tell you, and I wasn't going to stay up, especially after all that time. So I decided to stay in the albergue. Still didn't really help with the noise, only reduced it a little bit. But I met these 2 lovely Polish girls. Now here's the thing. When I had dinner on day 1 at the place called Ratus, and I was talking with Marina, there were 2 young, in their 20s, Polish girls sat at another table. And a part of me thought I should go and say hi to them. But I'm very introverted and nervous, so I didn't. In fact, the fact that I had dinner with the lady Marina from Catalonia is only because she offered herself, hey, can I sit at the table with you? And I said, oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not very good at initiating conversation, to be honest, but hey, let's put that aside. What happens here? I'm outside the albergue in Portela, and there are the 2 Polish girls again. I'm like, oh, cool, I saw you. I think I saw you at the restaurant yesterday. And they're like, oh yeah, I think I might have seen you. And so we got chatting and talking, and they said they were going to go to dinner across the road in a restaurant. And I said, can I join you? And they said, sure. We're having a great conversation. I'm cracking lots of jokes. I'm making them laugh a lot. And we all have a lovely meal together, sleep. And I asked them, before we go to sleep, I asked, can I accompany you on the first leg of the journey tomorrow, since we'll probably be going to the same place? And they said they would love that, and so that was cool. So we woke up early the next morning, 4-ish in the morning, and we started walking towards a place called Ponte de Lima. And along the way, we have a little stop for coffee, and we're talking a lot, and they're praying for a friend of theirs. They're very much Christian Catholic, and I know the Christian Catholic prayers because that's how I grew up. And so while they were praying in Polish for their friend that they have, who is unfortunately got diagnosed with cancer, I prayed alongside them in Portuguese in my own way. And it was really nice. They did 2 rosaries alongside the path for their friend, and I thought that was really nice. And we got talking about all sorts, and I wanted to introduce some of the other ideas that I'm interested in, like Buddhism and other spiritual ideas, but they were not so taken by those ideas because they're very much strong on their own faith, and I respect that completely. But yeah, I felt it was a little bit, oh man, I wish I could talk about these things, but hey, whatever, doesn't matter. Really nice walking with them, and after 8 hours from walking about 4 in the morning until midday, we make it to a place called Ponte de Lima. And Ponte de Lima, let's get the big map out. There's Porto down there. Here's Ponte de Lima, and it's a very, very lovely, I don't know if you'll be able to see that bridge, Roman bridge. It is, this was the low point for me. Why? The physical challenge of day 2 and 3 up till this point, lunchtime, were immense. Day 2 and day 3 up to this point were like about 50 kilometers of the walk that I was constantly having a mental challenge with myself, thinking, am I going to keep going? Is it worth it? And all of this doubt. But I had a rest. The two Polish girls were going to stay at the albergue, but me, as you know, I was going to continue and look for a place to camp after the albergue. I wasn't going to stay with them any longer. Unfortunately, they did want for me to stay with them, and a part of me wanted to stay with them as well, but I've got to do it at my own pace, and we recognize that. So I take a little time to go shopping. I have a swim in the river. I refresh myself, rest from the sun, have a nice bit of lunch, and I feel so good and refreshed, I decide to continue walking. Finally, I'm doubling up on socks. I finally did it. I double up on socks, and it's incredible. The pain in my feet has gone away. I treated my blisters. I wore 2 pairs of socks. Why didn't I do this in the first 2 days? God knows. Now I feel amazing. And I walk another 8 kilometers in about 2 hours, so very good pace. And I made it to a river beach. This river beach was incredible, where I put up the tent. In fact, the only clip I recorded over this whole walk of Santiago de Compostela was this river beach where I set up my tent, Rio Toca, Toca. It looked like it was recently developed to become a river beach. The water was so cold and refreshing, and I had a lovely time, apart from some noisy French holiday makers, some young guys and girls who were having a holiday, I guess, somewhere in the north of Portugal, and they were very noisy at 2 a.m. going for a quick dip in the water at the river beach. They kept shouting, "Bon dia, bon dia," knowing that there was a guy trying to get some sleep in a tent. Anyway, I didn't interact with them. I didn't want to talk with them. I was just going to try to get my sleep. They were going to be gone soon anyway, and surely less than half an hour they were gone. Yeah. But I was really glad that I had pushed myself to walk beyond just Ponte Lima on that day, even though a part of me was thinking, I should stay with Polish girls and walk at their pace and whatnot. But I had very limited holiday time. I needed to walk a bit more than that. And I wasn't planning to stay at the albergues. I brought my tent for a reason, to sleep in the tent. That was lovely, sleeping in the tent at that river beach. The next day was my favorite bit of the walk. Now, if I hold this up, you'll notice that there's like a little sort of grey line here. This is the altitude. And the next day had the highest amount of altitude of the whole walk, Mont La Bruja, which I think means the witch. And let's see if it appears here on the map. So we've got Ponte Lima, Rubiães. Yeah, it doesn't really appear, but this part with the increased elevation was my favorite part of the whole walk. And I don't know why it is. This extreme uphill, this really intense, only focusing on the next step you take, it got my mind really focused, because I've got all this weight on my back. I don't want to make a misstep and slip on a rock and fall down a mountain, so I'm really focused. And going up, the time just flew by, and I loved it. And I met a lovely lady called Sofia, who was living in Barcelos and doing a walk from there, and she had stayed at the albergue where the 2 Polish girls had stayed the day before. And I bumped into her halfway up the mountain, and she was like, "Hey, can I walk with you?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And she later let me know that she had heard that there are sometimes crazy men in the mountain who try to prey on vulnerable women. And that's the reason why she wanted to walk with me, is because when we were walking, there was a guy, and he did look like he had some crazy eyes, or some sort of thing was off with him. And I think it was good that Sophia decided to walk with me, because who knows what would have happened when you encounter a strange guy. So a little note, in case you are a girl thinking on traveling solo to Camiño de Santiago, the only point that I would say you should be really concerned is the Mont La Bruja. The only part. If you can go with company, I would recommend that. Make sure you're in a group at least. Anyway, we continue walking, and we find a cafe, and we stop at a cafe, and there's this guy called Jacinto, who is also from Barcelos. And turns out Sophia and Jacinto knew each other, because Sophia, earlier in the day when they were walking sort of at a similar pace, she just kept going on about wanting coffee. She was talking about coffee with me. She hadn't had a coffee yet in that day, and so Jacinto was mocking her for always thinking about coffee all the time. And we stop in this cafe, and we all get the coffee. We all have a refreshing little refresher, and we continue to walk. And me and Sophia, we've got a good pace. Sophia walks fast, and I love that, because I'm trying to keep up with her, and she's pushing me, and I love that. And Jacinto, he lags a little bit behind, but he's also got an interesting personality. He is a hunter in his free time. And so this is going to be relevant because me and Sophia, we're walking a lot this day. We're pushing ourselves. I've been walking from 5 in the morning, and it's getting towards 2 in the afternoon. So we've walked almost 30 kilometers non-stop. This is really challenging, but I happen to be feeling okay this day, at least compared to day 2 and 3. I'm actually doing all right, despite the crazy number of kilometers I'm walking. And me and Sophia, we're talking about getting a beer, and she's going to get a panache, or was it called a shandy? And we were talking about when we finally make it to Tui or Valença. That's on the Portuguese side of the border is Valença. Across the Rio Minho, on the other side of the border, it's Tui. And we were talking when we get to Valença, we're going to have a beer and a panache. And what happens is we see a group of guys, and there's like a smell of grilled meat in the air. And just down a little, just off the path, in this sort of like, it looks like a little area, picnic area sort of. And she says, I'm going to ask these guys for a beer. And I said, oh, don't bother them, because I'm British and mild mannered. Don't bother little, people doing their thing. Don't bother them. We don't want to make a fuss. So she's like, I'm going to ask them. And she says, oi, chefs, do you have 2 beers for us travellers, or caminhantes, or pilgrims? And they said, of course, come over. And so we go over and they crack open 2 little beers for us. They give us a slice of melon as well. That's so refreshing. And they're a group of hunters that had stopped for their lunch on that day. And they had grilled meat. So, of course, they didn't have any more meat, but that's all right. They offered us some nice beer and melon. And then they said, oh, we got to baptize you. So they gave out this huge porcelain bowl, poured out a local red wine into the bowl, and said you have to drink directly from the bowl. So this big porcelain white and blue bowl, I drank from it, and so the hunters baptized us. And they were a great laugh. They were always joking about, oh, young man walking with this woman, like sort of pretending to flirt and stuff. And I blushed so easily. I'm like, oh no, I can't take that sort of joke. But it was really nice, and it was great company to be walking with Sophia this day, on day 4. And we continued walking after. We continue walking, and we make it all the way to Valença, and we make it with Jacinto, because we got a bit ahead of him, but we're making a lot of stops because Sophia is challenged. What was the huge challenge for me on day 2, right? This is what she was going on day 4, and she was doing more kilometers than me. And she did the craziest uphill. So what she was going through was the sort of defeated feeling that I was going through. And so we had to make a lot of pauses, but I was always happy to pause with her, and just seemed to call out with us. And we all made a final effort to make the last stretch towards Valença. We go into a cafe/bar, and I get a beer, and Jacinta has a beer, and she has a panache. And they were going to stay at a hotel for the night. And I explained, well, I've got my tent. I'm actually going to continue walking. And so it was nice to walk through Valença. It's something that I want to visit again one day, and my parents visited it recently as well. They say it was lovely. Beautiful castle, walk in the Camiño, go through this lovely sort of medieval streets, and shops open, and it's really lovely. And I walk across the bridge, across the Rio Minho, and all the albergues are completely full. I was thinking I'll go to an albergue tonight, that's what I thought. They were all completely booked, all full. This is what happens when you get there at the end of the day as opposed to midday. Most of the people walking the Camiño, first of all, on this bit of path between Porto and Santiago, most people start from Tui across the border, because it's about 100 kilometers, and you need to do at least 100 kilometers to get the official passport/certificate saying that you did the Camiño, when you get things stamped in this little booklet. I didn't have a booklet. I didn't put a seashell on the backpack. I missed out on those things because I wasn't aware of this tradition. And so I don't have a certificate on my wall saying I did a Camiño de Santiago. But at least in my own mind, I know I did it. I've got my own memories. I'm going to look back on this video and smile, of course. So many things happened in such a little holiday. So much happened. I really made the most of it. And so all the albergues were full. I really wanted a shower. What's my option? Well, I'm right next to the river. Let's go down the riverside and see if there's a place to swim. And there was a place where some old men and some kids were swimming, and I thought, all right, I'm going to have a swim. That was really refreshing. I swim in the Rio Minho, the River Minho, across the border of Portugal and Spain. That was really refreshing. Really enjoyed myself. And so I continued walking, and I walked for about another 7 kilometers, and total, yeah, I walked another 7 kilometers total, and I found a nice little spot just off the path near a train track, and this was the best sleep I got all holiday. Yeah, the first night behind the trees, sweaty, too hot. The third night at the river beach, noisy French people. Near the train track, it only woke me up once in the night. I think the train track literally only moved once in the night, and so that was a really good night's sleep. Okay, let's get the next week open. So, now it's Monday, and I start my walk, and I go to a place called Bourguignon, across the border. So, let me show you the map again. We've got Valencia here, Tui, a little bit towards Bourguignon. I make a stop, and then I make it to Bourguignon. And that was another 14 kilometers to get there. It took me about 4 hours, and this is day 5. When I get there, I have to wash all my clothes in a laundrette, and so that was nice. Sofia and Jacinto also made it to Bourguignon a little bit after me, so I hung out with them a little bit. And I said, I've got to go get lunch, I'm going to get a kebab, I'm going to rest, and then I'm going to continue my walk. And that was the last time I saw Sofia and Jacinto, but it was nice to see them again on this day. A lot of these things is day 1, I meet Marina. Day 2, I walk with her. Day 1, I sort of saw the Polish girls. Day 2, I'm walking, I meet them at the albergue, and then on day 3, we walk together, and then we part ways. On day 3, I had seen Sofia, but I hadn't really introduced myself properly. Day 4, I'm walking with her. Day 5, I get to see her one last time in Porto. So a lot of these people you catch for little portions of the journey, especially when you're having a rest, or they can catch up with you, catch up with them. I am pushing myself harder than most people on this walk, but I feel that I was quite comfortable to do so. Despite the pain of day 2 and 3, day 4 and 5, I'm feeling much better. I get to Bourguignon, I see Sofia and Jacinto after going to the laundrettes, and then I get a kebab for lunch. I stopped in this kebab shop. It was so highly rated, and I thought this is going to be great. It was so delicious. I can still taste it just thinking about it right now. It was so delicious. And they were so kind to me in the kebab shop. They said, hey, do you want a more comfy seat, like a sofa seat? You can sleep on it if you want. You can rest as long as you need, do whatever you want. So can I connect to your Wi-Fi? And I got to recharge my batteries. What's recharging my batteries for me? Watching a bunch of YouTube videos. So I sat there after eating my kebab for 2 hours at the kebab shop, and I got to just enjoy these YouTube videos and really rest up. And that was so good. I then also bought a pastry, an apple pastry. That was nice. I took care of my blisters, read the Bible a little bit, and then did a bit of shopping and continued my way. When I continued walking, this was when I was carrying the most weight, because I had now water bottles, and I had also some extra food that I had bought for along the way. So I think my rucksack is weighing about 15 kilos at this point when it's at its heaviest. I also bought like some orange juice and just tried to get vitamins and whatever. When I started walking, it was still too hot, the sun was still too high, and so I sat down to meditate a little bit in the shade, watch a few more YouTube videos, and then I continued on my way towards Redondela. Now my plan was to go up the hill, so this is like maybe one of the second steepest sort of uphills along the path, and I was planning when I get to the top to look for a place to camp, and then the next day have my rest during the day at Redondela. But on the way up the hill, I took some photos for some lads who were outside this albergue where they had been resting during the hot hours of the day, and they were planning to continue. And I asked, hey, do you want me to take a photo for you? Because they weren't all included in the photos. Oh, that'd be great. So I took some photos of them and I say, okay, bye. One of them's got a guitar. I walk ahead of them. But I'm always about 100 or 200, maybe at most, meters ahead of them, because I'm hearing the guitar as I'm walking, as they're just, not too far behind. I get to the top of this hill. I'm considering scouting places where I can put up the tent, but I decided to wait a little bit and let those guys come up. And I thought I would just start a conversation with them. And these were 4 brothers from Boston, and it was really nice to meet them. And so I got to talk with these 4 Boston brothers and have a great conversation with them, particularly the oldest brother, Connor. And I got to ask a lot of questions I had about the Bible, because I mentioned I was reading it, and he had already read it, and he does praying every day as a form of meditation, and very insightful conversation, very intelligent lad, very hardworking. And so that was really good. And in getting lost in the conversation, we go through the most steep downhill of the whole path. And as we're going on this steep downhill, the sun is setting just over the sort of mountain on the other side of the valley. and we all stop and just admire that beautiful moment in nature. And we walk all the way to Redondela. I didn't expect to make it, to be honest, but there I am. Late at night, Redondela, no place to camp in the city, of course. Everywhere's already full. What am I going to do? I decided to stay in a hotel. And the hotel that I can get is a 10-minute taxi away. So I spend 15 euros on the taxi, 60 euros for the hotel room, 15 euros for another taxi back, and I get breakfast. Overall, I've spent almost 100 euros just for this night because I hadn't really planned to spend so much money, and it was inconvenient, and the hotel room wasn't that good. I didn't sleep well, to be honest, in that bed. I didn't. And but the view that I got when I was eating my breakfast, my little ham toasty in the morning, and the coffee, the view out to the water was beautiful, spectacular, lovely, beautiful sunrise. So it was nice to get some refreshment. But to be honest, sitting a few hours at the kebab shop the day before was really like the battery recharging moment that I needed. So stayed at a hotel, not too special. Took a taxi back to get to Pontevedra. Oh yeah, this is where it was, Pontevedra. Redondela. Then the next stop is Pontevedra on the path. And I wanted to mention, when I stayed at the albergue on the second night, where the two Polish girls were that I met them, and I talked also with some people from Lithuania, I got a beer. I got 2 beers. Oh man, and on the end of day 1 and the end of day 2, to get to have a cold, refreshing beer after such physical exertion, incredible. Wow, absolutely spectacular. Those beers went down an absolute treat. And food is delicious, drink is delicious along the path. Next day, as I said, got a taxi back to Redondela and walked to Pontevedra, and I did a good job to make it all the way to Pontevedra. And then I stayed at a cafe / restaurant, and I had a sandwich and a Coke. This was really nice to stop at Pontevedra. I remember when I was walking on this path, especially at this point, I'm passing so many peregrinos because there are like hundreds of them now. Whereas in Portugal, I saw maybe a dozen on the first day, a dozen in the second day, a few dozen on the third and fourth. Now, on the Spain side of things, day 5, 6, 7, 8, hundreds of pilgrims. Like, this is where everyone's doing it. And I've got a fast walking pace, so I'm walking past them. And I decided also to listen to some music on my phone. I wasn't listening to any music until the night before, when I was walking, before I met with the Lost Boston lads. I was playing music on my phone and loving it. And so this morning, towards Pontevedra, I was also playing music on my phone and loving it. And as I was walking past the people, sometimes they'd recognize a tune like Take On Me by Aha. And they would like hum along or sing along, like, oh, that song, I like that song. And so that was cool, walking past people. Make it to Pontevedra. And yeah, exhausting because I had walked 20 kilometers, but feeling good that I had made good progress. Each day, I'm calling my parents in the morning when I make my little pause at lunchtime, and later in the day, wherever I send up my tent. So I'm always giving my parents a call. It was nice to stay at that restaurant and rest at Pontevedra. Spent many hours there. Delicious food, as always. Had a nice sandwich that came with like chips and a salsa, and read a lot of the Bible this day. And it was really interesting to get through, because I had only gotten to Exodus earlier in the year, and I had taken a long time without reading. Now in Camiño, I'm rereading the Bible now. And a lot of it is a bit repetitive that I'm going through at the Bible at this moment, talking about how to set up the tabernacle and all of this. It repeats like 2 or 3 times in the early books in the Bible, so I'm getting a little bit frustrated with all the repetitive information. And I must admit that I'm not reading every single word at this point, that I am starting to realize if this is all the same, I'm just going to skip a bit, just glance over the paragraphs, and if it all looks like stuff I've read before, I'm skipping over it. I remember this in particular in Pontevedra. Then I do another 10-kilometer walk to end the day, and I find a picnic area, which is a great place to put up a tent, and I meet a guy called Dominic from the Czech Republic, who's also doing the walk. So we have a little chat, and then the next morning we decide to start our walk towards Goudersgeest together. Now, I was going through a lot of pain on this day, so we've got it's day 6, not as painful as day 7, but day 6 in the morning. Gosh, I didn't treat my blister the night before in the morning, and when you're walking on a blister, it is horribly painful. So always treat your blisters. And so that's what happened. I treated my blister when we stopped at a cafe, and the rest of the morning was quite easy. And had a little pause, and we continued walking, and we make it to a place called Galdas de Reis. And he's going to continue his path because he's got more kilometers to do than I do. And I say goodbye to Dominic, and I decided to rest there. They have natural warm springs, and so I went to this water fountain expecting to clean my hands and my feet in cold water. No, it was hot water. Too hot for me to keep my feet in, so I could only pass it in and out in little bits. But I took a nice little 15-minute pause with this very hot water, and it completely healed my foot. Well, I'll say that, but that's not the case. I still got pain in my feet with all the weight, but it felt really refreshing. I'd stay at this albergue, which is like a hostel, but has a really nice seating area for like a restaurant slash bar slash cafe sort of thing. Excellent. I stayed there for hours and really got to recharge my batteries once again. The food was delicious. I got like a proper platter, like a typical Portuguese food, which is like a mixture of cheeses and slices of ham and such, toast with jam, and drank many Fanta ananas, which is pineapple, and relaxed and read more. Then I once again did another walk to the next camping spot. This time it was kind of near motorway, not too far from a motorway, not too noisy, and it was all right. Nice camping night. Good sleep again. Okay, we're now getting to the final 2 days. Next day, I walked to Padrón, again a bit more further along the path, and we're getting so close to Santiago at this point. I rest in Padrón, and I'm just trying to remember. Oh yeah, that's right. I get to Padrón, and there's an albergue over there. And I asked, can I have a shower, please? I'm willing to pay €5. And this guy was like, what? You just want a shower? You don't want to stay the night? I was like, yeah, I just really need a shower. Like, all right, you'll pay €5? I said, yeah, sure. Okay, give me €5. And normally albergues are very kind and compassionate towards pilgrims, especially in the Portugal side where they're not so much like, you got to pay. They're more like, yeah, of course, use the shower, of course, rest, take as long as you need. Here in Spain, they're a bit more, hey, let's get a bit more money. And this was a shared sentiment by a lot of the people who did the Camiño. Again, stop in a little cafe, have a bit of lunch. I rest, I'm sitting on a bench reading the Bible. This is what a typical day is looking like. I pack up my tent, walk to the next main location where most people would stop. I rest, I have some food, I read a bit of the Bible, and once the sun is a bit lower again, many hours later, I continue walking. And so I continued walking towards Santiago. I did a little pause at another restaurant along the way because the sun was still too high. Oh, and I also had a pause at the supermarket as well. I tried a watermelon flavoured Fanta, not that good to be honest. Ate a Milky Bar, wow, that made me happy. And I continued to walk towards Santiago, and I set up my tent in this little bit of forest, a little bit off the Santiago path, Camino path. And I met a guy called Will, just like me. My name's William. I met a guy called Will, also William, who was studying at Durham in the UK. And he was from Manchester. And so we had a great conversation. And he was studying Russian history and literature at university. And he was going to enroll in the army, and he was doing a course, and he was between a normal degree and a master's. And so we chatted a lot. And the next morning, he left a little bit before me. It was nice to get to know him a little bit that night and keep him company. And so I was in the tent, and he was staying under a tarp. That's how he was staying. So it was nice to meet this guy. It's the last day, the last stretch towards Santiago. And it's a challenge. I remember I said that on day 6/7, I had pain in my feet. I think that was the last time it was a real challenge. I'm doing the last bit of stretch towards Santiago, and I finally make it. And for the second time, I get my phone out and I just take a photo of the Santiago. And that was the second bit of media I took. I took one little video of me going camping next to the river, didn't document anything else, just on my way walking. And then I took a photo of the Santiago Compostela church. I'd been there once before when I was younger, but this is the first time I had done the walk and made it. And a strange sensation comes over me. I don't have to walk anymore. And it hasn't really sunk in. It feels surreal that my brain is actually thinking I don't have to walk anymore. I had walked so much. I had gone through such an adventure over these last 8 days. It's unbelievable. And now the thought's going across my mind. I don't have to walk anymore. It was a very strange thought. My parents, they came also to the square in front of the church, the cathedral. And then we walked to the hotel. Oh wait, sorry, before that we had lunch at a place called Casa Manolo, as recommended by this lady that I know who works at the donut shop that I love, and she had done the commute from multiple different places, and she always eats at Casa Manolo. And Casa Manolo has delicious food, great portions, very cheap price. Unbelievable. My parents couldn't believe how cheap it was. We had a decent meal. It was really nice. Now we walk to the hotel, I have a shower, and I just get to relax now. And so I'm telling my parents about all that's been happening and whatnot. At the hotel, I have some garlic prawns with some bread for my dinner. That was delicious. And sleep. Next morning, we had a breakfast buffet. It was okay. I'm not a big fan of breakfast buffets in hotels personally. I prefer to save my money and go to a cafe where I prefer the food and it's cheaper. Anyway, it's a drive all the way down to Fatima, and that was my adventure. That was a crazy amount of time to dedicate just to one walk, especially not having had any experience before. I had only done a few hikes with the rucksack with weight in it, a 2-hour walk here, a 4-hour walk there, but I hadn't done more than that. So to throw myself into the deep end, to not take seriously the advice of doubling up on socks and make sure you've got right footwear. If there's one thing you get from this video, it's double up on socks and get proper shoes and break them in and take care of your feet. It will make the whole walk 2 times easier if you do this. Just trust me. I had to learn the hard way. It was incredible. Something that has to be done when you do walk is, well, some people do it, not everyone. There's this place after Santiago de Compostela, even further to the northwestern region of Spain, called Finisterre, which means end of the land. And normally people go there and burn a piece of clothing or their shoes in remembrance of the walk that they did. Now, I didn't bother, my parents didn't bother driving me there, I didn't bother going there. So at home a few weekends later, I did a little campfire in my back garden around a stone circle that I made, and I burnt my shoes there as a way to say, okay, this is the end of the spiritual journey. Now, people normally do the Camiño with the intention of it being a religious and spiritual experience. I will say that for me, that was probably 20% the reason why I did it. 80% of the reason why I did it was because I wanted a physical challenge and I really wanted to do a multi-day hike. And I'm so glad that I did it. I'm very happy looking back and just having all these memories. It was a very special time, and I think it will be the highlight of my year. I think the thing that I'll look back on and say, I did that this year, like looking at the main things I did this year, 2024, I walked the Camiño de Santiago from Porto all the way, 230 kilometers, close to 30 kilometers a day. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.